Number 2. I really don't know how to start this off other than I'm a 14-year-old girl who loves her life. I am blessed with such amazing parents, brothers, and friends that I won't ask for any sort of change. But in life, you have to take the good with the bad. I live in northern Illinois, surrounded by cornfields and woods. There is a creek that runs in front and to the east of my house, so we got a lot of deer and other game, which makes it a good location for hunting. It was around early October when this event took place. I just turned 14. My birthday is in late September. I had been home from school that day because I had strep throat. It was around 4:47 that evening when my mom had called me and said that I need to deliver some candles to my neighbor Tony that lived down the street. I live at the end of our neighborhood, down a long gravel road, and she lived kind of in the middle of my street, so it was kind of a long walk from my house. I wasn't used to going into the neighborhood by myself. I usually forced one of my older brothers to escort me, but no one was home at the time, so I tried to convince my mom that I was too sick to go, but she didn't change her mind. She assured me it would only take a few minutes, so I sucked it up and went by myself. I put on a sweatshirt and exited my house, turning on the flashlight on my phone. My phone was on low battery, so I needed to be quick. I left my garage, and as I walked across my driveway, I saw hunters down at the barn. It didn't faze me. They were usually there smoking and blaring music, but that night, they were just hanging around in their truck. Not blaring music, not smoking, or burning piles on fire. Again, it didn't strike me as unusual, so I just continued down the gravel road to my neighborhood. It wasn't cold out, but it was cloudy, and there was no moon out that night, so it was dark. And I mean, very dark. Not just, oh yeah, it's nighttime dark, but without my flashlight or the house lights, I could only make out vague shapes, and being sick and nonetheless tired didn't make anything better. Anyways, I had made it to my neighborhood, and I walked down the rows of houses in search of Tony's house. Everything was quiet, and most people had their lights off. Then I could see a very bright light in the corner of my eye. I had turned to face the hunter's pickup, driving down the street, then past me. I saw the driver sticking out their arm out the window with a bottle in his hand. I had rolled my eyes. What a bunch of idiots. I continued down the road, knowing that Tony's house is nearby. I eventually came to her house, and I could tell she wasn't home due to her lights being off and absence of cars on her driveway. I was too tired to wait, so I just left the candles on her doorstep and headed home. I was about 4 houses from the gravel road that leads to my house when I heard loud music and tires speeding down the street. When I turned around, I saw a blinding sight of headlights growing closer. I was blinded at first, but then, when my eyes had adjusted, I noticed that there were 2 trucks. The first one flew right past me, but the second slowed down to where I was standing. When I noticed that they were slowing down, I freaked out a little inside, so I continued walking in the hopes that they wouldn't try to talk to me. As the truck came closer, I heard the window roll down, and the sound of 2 men snickering, along with the lyrics of country music. The passenger looked at me and smiled a disgusting smile. His teeth were stained an unhealthy yellow, probably from smoking. "Need a ride?" he asked, slurring his speech a bit. He was clearly drunk as hell, and I had no intentions of talking with him. I tried to stay calm and replied a polite "no," and walked faster. The truck stayed with me. He tried to convince me to get a ride with them. Then he made a remark about my body, and a phrase that made my blood run cold. He then continued to try and pressure me to get into the car. Despite being clearly drunk, I'm sure he knew what "no" meant. "No, I'm good, you can go now." I had lost my voice, so it was very raspy and quiet, so I hope he heard me. I heard him snicker with the driver again. He wasn't going to give up, and I knew it. I glared at him in the coldest, most unforgiving way I could. "Why don't you just fuck off, Grandpa?" I just lost my cool. He then gave me a look. He was clearly offended, and everything went quiet. We were almost to the gravel road until he reached through the window and grabbed the loose fabric of my sweatshirt and yanked me to the truck. Hard. My shoulder violently slammed into the door, causing my shoulder to throb in pain. I yelped and started to try to get away. He began mumbling something that I could only make a few words of, and I began to try and call for help, but I couldn't because of the condition of my throat. I tried to get out of his grasp. The truck was at a complete stop, and when I heard the driver open his door, I started flailing even more. The driver came around the back and hit me on the head with the bottle. It was a sharp pain that spread throughout my head. I hit the side of the door of the truck and I began bleeding. I started crying and thrashing around so much that I elbowed the guy behind me in the nose. He fell down squaring, and I started crying and thrashing around so much I elbowed the guy behind me in the nose. Instinctively, while he was down, I took the opportunity to bite the arm of the guy who was holding me. I bit down so hard I felt like I was biting into a hairy Tootsie Roll. Plus, I have braces, so that may have made it a bit more painful. Hopefully. I heard the guy scream profanities at me, calling me a bitch and a cunt, and he let me go, and I wasted no time getting the hell away from there. My legs felt like jelly, and I was shaking really badly. I kept on feeling like I was about to fall forward, and every rock was like ice. My head was spinning from how hard the guy had hit me with that bottle, plus the fear and being sick wasn't helping. I heard the truck start up behind me and tires screeching. Luckily on the right of the road is a forest, and I bolted into the trees for cover. I heard the truck stop again and doors slamming shut, and shouting echoed from all around me, and I couldn't tell how close they were from me. I couldn't tell where I was going, where they were, and on top of all of that, I felt disoriented. My legs were still being forced not to completely give out. I was sworn I could barely breathe. Every inhale felt like daggers driving into my lungs. And then I realized that the men could still see me because of the flashlight on my phone was still on. So I struggled to put in my password and turned it off before dropping it. I literally freaked the hell out. I stopped and ran back to get my phone when I realized how close they were. I scrambled to the ground and behind a cluster of bushes. My legs had finally given out as I was shaking violently, trying to control my breathing. I heard the men talking, but I couldn't tell how near or far they were. My head was spinning and it throbbed in pain. I closed my eyes and counted to 10, inhaling and exhaling calmly. The men were looking around, stomping through the crisp leaves as they went. "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty," they kept on saying, in the drunkest fashion I've ever heard. I tried to crawl over to a large oak tree that had a large hole in it. I was 3 yards away from it, and I had no cover. I was very fearful of being exposed, so I kept on going, peering around for them. I made it to the tree, and I climbed in. I felt relieved and safe, curling up in the small space I had, and tried to stay warm. I waited in there for what seemed like forever until I heard the doors to the truck shut, but it didn't leave. I peeked out from the hole and saw nothing. I shakily stood up and kept very quiet. It was very dark, and the chances are, if I couldn't see that well, a couple of drunks couldn't see any better. I began walking in through the forest to the direction of my house. I couldn't see that much, so it took me a while. Every once in a while I would trip over a branch, and one time my feet. Don't judge me. It was very dark, and I was sick. Anyways, I was coming to the edge of the woods when I saw a bright headlight flash in front of me and go past. They drove on for a while and stopped. When I emerged from the forest, the truck was driving my parkway. The other truck drove up and parked with them. I began to break down. I hid behind some trees again and began sobbing. I was gonna die. I knew it. I didn't want to die. I hadn't to live that long. I had a mini panic attack, and I had no choice but to wait there. It was cold and dark. Then I remembered my phone. Then I was thinking that my phone would be too bright. They would see it, and they would hear me talking. But I just decided to go for it. It was the best chance I had of living. I called my dad and began explaining what happened. My dad freaked out and told me to wait there, and he called the police while I was talking with him. I did as I was told and waited there, looking behind the tree every once in a while. I was still scared, but I knew I was going to be okay. And I was. Eventually they left. They drove right past me, and I just chewed on my sleeve in anxiety. Even though they were gone, I still stayed in the woods. I didn't even want to move. My shoulder hurt from the man, my head throbbed with a headache, and my throat stung. The blood had clotted around my forehead, but the blood stained my clothes and face. I waited in silence. Nothing seemed real. It all seemed like a dream. I felt that I could wake up and everything would have never happened, and I'd still be happy and safe. But it wasn't a dream. I just couldn't wake up. It was all as real as ever, but I didn't want to accept it. Everything was so surreal. Both my parents came home, and shortly after the police. There was a 4-day investigation before the two men were caught. They confessed to being drunk and trying to take me. The one who grabbed me had also been accused of manslaughter, fined more than once for speeding and driving under the influence, and both were linked to rapes. I was honestly truly lucky to have gotten away from them. The driver was sentenced to 14 years in prison, and the other one got 28 years. I never thought this would happen to me, honest to God. To this day, I still question everything I did and what happened. I felt like a deer being chased down by wolves, hopeless and afraid for my life. I don't know where I'll be in 28 years, but I hope I never have to see those sick men in my life ever again. And I hope no one else has to go through what I did. No one should feel like that. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, then please like and subscribe. Also, as you may have noticed, I waited until now to upload my video. And to that, I'm going to upload my videos on Sundays now, because I don't have the time to record on weekdays. But my vids will be longer as a trade-off. And I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. Peace out.